Yes guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're talking about Gary O'Neill sacking at Wolves. Huge news coming out of Wolves. Brighton was sort of on the wall, I think, in the past few games, but yeah, before we get into it though, don't forget to hit that like button as it really helps the video out. Subscribe to the channel as well, and without further ado, let's get straight into it. So, Gary O'Neill has been sacked by Wolves after managing 63 games at Wolves. He got 20 wins, 11 draws and 32 losses. Done a good job last year, finished 14th with Wolves after losing a few key players like Ruben Neves, Matthias Nunes, you know, some big names. Got them to 14th and done well, but this season they have been very, very poor. And to be honest, with the run of results, you can see why the sacking has happened. 19th in the league with 16 games played. At the start of the season, they went 10 games without a win. And yeah, they've just looked really, really poor. They've only managed to beat Southampton and Fulham this season, which just shows you that they're struggling against the top sides, you know. Southampton, everyone should be beating them, which they did. But, you know, Fulham, it was a good game for them. They did play really well. But in the other games, they have largely second best. You know, there's been some results in there that are really, really poor, which I'll touch on later in the video. But yeah, overall, this season in general has just been a car crash of a season, you know, nowhere near the levels that they were last season, as mentioned. And yeah, they've just been so off the pace. They've conceded the most goals this season, 40 in total. That is the highest in the league this season. They're conceding on average 2.5 goals a game. And when you look at the sides that they've conceded against, it's inexcusable, to be honest. So going into the results, they've conceded 6 against Chelsea, 5 to Brentford, 4 to Bournemouth and 4 to Everton. That's 19 goals in those games alone. And when I listed out a few of them teams, you know, your likes of your Everton's, conceding 4 goals to Everton should never happen to any side in the Premier League, you know. Everton rarely get above 2 goals in the league. And yeah, that performance really just shows you what type of level they are at this season, you know, can't score many goals and just flooding in goals at the back, you know. The defence looks like it might as well not even be there at times. It's really, really poor this season in terms of their defence, and maybe that is down to the manager or down to the players, but for me, the whole team has just got to take accountability for that, because conceding the goals they have against the certain teams that they have, it's just inexcusable, to be honest. But they've got Premier League proven defenders, you know. You've got like Craig Dawson, who's been at West Brom, West Ham, now Wolves as well. He's been in the Premier League for many years. You've got Ryan Aït-Nouri as well, who's been at Wolves for a good few years now, you know, brought in from Ligue 1. Rose up the ranks really at Wolves and earned his starting place. You've got lots of Matt Doherty as well, who has been at Spurs, he's been at Wolves. You know, he's again another well-travelled right back. You've got the likes of Jose Sarr as well in goal, who's been a solid keeper for many years, filling in for Rui Patricio once he left, and has been decent. And yeah, they've just got so many defenders that you would not expect these types of performances that you're getting out of them this season. You know, they've seemed to really have let Gary O'Neill down, I think. I feel like the fingers should be pointed at the defenders and not Gary O'Neill, because some of the teams that they're conceding to is, you know, as I mentioned, Everton, 4 goals against Everton. Conceded, I think, 4 or 5 against Brentford as well. Like, it's just nowhere near good enough. And it's down to the manager at some point, but you can't be conceding those goals, even with poor tactics. You know, you can't be conceding 4 goals to Everton. It's just beyond me, to be honest. They've had 3 errors leading to goals this season and 5 penalties conceded as well. So not only is it poor defending, it's just reckless defending as well. You know, not keeping their heads, not knowing when to go in for tackles, when to, you know, play that right ball, because as I said, 3 errors leading to goals already. It's not good enough, as I keep saying it's not good enough, because it's not, you know, it's Wolves. You know, this team were not so long ago in Europe, you know, under Nuno. Some of these players are still in that side, and the players that they've let go in recent years as well has been a real letdown for Gary O'Neill, I think. You know, players like Ruben Neves, Matthias Nunes, players who are going to be in his starting 11 that have been ripped out of his core. You know, you think like some Max Kilman as well this season, Pedro Neto. Players that will play a real key part this season have just been torn away, and they've been substituted in, basically, transfers that have come in that are nowhere near good enough, you know, nowhere near the levels of your Pedro Netos, your Max Kilmans, you know. They didn't even get another centre-back in to replace Max Kilman, and the one that's going to challenge for a starting 11 spot anyway. They've just not been good enough, and the board have really got to take responsibility as well as the team. There's only one result that really can happen when you're stripping the best players away from a manager season in, season out. And yeah, the writing was on the wall really that this season was going to happen. You know, I was surprised it didn't happen last season when they lost Ruben Neves and Matthias Nunez, the core of their midfield. But they managed to keep a hold of it. Gary O'Neill kept them afloat and got playing some real good football at times, to be honest. And this season, I feel like, you know, the chickens are coming to roost, and now you're starting to see the holes in the team and the lack of, you know, financial backing from the board, the lack of knowledge in terms of getting the right players in, you know, not getting in Premier League proven players. I'm seeing the likes of Andre coming in from the Brazilian league, you know. He's never been to this type of level of football, and it's such a hard task for players like these to come in and make an impact in this league, because the players aren't really going to be, you know, prepared for this type of intensity. And only Premier League players with experience know this. And these players are getting stripped away constantly, going to your main rivals, like Pedro Neto went to Chelsea, especially Max Kilman to West Ham. You know, they're West Ham, a sort of team that are going to be challenging you, and they're miles apart this season. I feel West Ham look much more of a team, even though their league position ain't great. They look more of a team, more of a unit than Wolves do. And when you're feeding your best players to your rivals in the table, it can only end one way, you know. It can only end one way, and you going down and them going up. In their last 4 games, they've lost 4 out of 4. You know, they've lost to Everton, Bournemouth, Ipswich and West Ham. So the writing has been on the wall for me. You know, the manager is going to take the fall for this, as they always do. You know, the fingers never pointed at the players, it's always the manager. And yeah, it was only a matter of time really before Gary O'Neill got the sack. And in that West Ham game as well, you know, they showed some fight. They probably should have had 2 penalties in my opinion. You know, the stamp on Bellegarde's foot, and the push on Guedes as well. I feel like they were really unlucky in that game. And things did boil over at the final whistle. Mario Lemina refused to shake Jarrod Bowen's hand. And when you look at him being the club captain, you know, he's got a set example for the rest of them. As I said, Max Kilman was taken away last season, and you're giving the armband to these types of players who have never been in this situation. Captaincy was stripped away from him after that West Ham game, after refusing to shake Jarrod Bowen's hand, which was a good call, I think, by Gary O'Neill. You can't have a player like that, you know, leading your other players by example. And yeah, that was fair enough. But they were really unlucky in that game. Maybe deserved at least a point. But yeah, that was deemed as El Sacchio. But then the real big game kicked in. The Ipswich game at home, you're expecting all 3 points. You know, Ipswich coming up from the Championship, not really got the team that Wolves have, to be honest. They haven't got the players that Wolves have in terms of Premier League experience, you know, knowing how to, you know, seal a game off, which has gone missing this season for Wolves. And Ipswich took full advantage of that. You know, scored in, I think it was 95th minute or something like that. A real blow to Wolves, and yet again tensions did boil over at the end. You know, you're seeing likes of Rayan Aït-Nouri having to be dragged off, Matthias Cunha getting in a scuffle with one of Ipswich backroom staff, I think it was. And yeah, Gary O'Neill coming out in a post-press conference saying that he's not taking the blame for, in terms of their set-piece goals that they conceded, and that also Ipswich would not score a goal like that against any other Premier League side. You know, he really went off in his interview and sort of put the blame on his players, which again, the writing's going to be on the wall, because as soon as the owners see that, as soon as they see a manager criticising his players, going too hard on his players, they're only going to sack him. You know, they're not going to blame the players. They're going to get rid of the manager, get someone else in, and the players will always win, as we've seen in many other clubs where this happens. And yeah, I think after that game, I think Gary O'Neill did realise that, yeah, this is going to be the end. You know, they've lost against West Ham, another relegation rival this season. They've now lost to Ipswich, who are newly promoted. You know, it's only going to end one way. And I feel like he really let his emotions be seen in the interview before he left, because he knew he was leaving. I think he knew he was going to leave regardless. So my outlook on things is that Gary O'Neill, I don't think, is to blame for these poor performances. I feel like he was really unlucky. because he showed that what a good manager he is. You know, he's been a solid manager for Bournemouth, kept them up when everyone was, you know, seemed it was destined for them to go down. Kept them up for a few seasons, then gets sacked, goes to Wolves, again have the players stripped away from him, keeps him in a good position at 14th, has another season of players getting taken away from him, and they've suffered the consequences, and Gary O'Neill has sort of got this bad mark on his record now because of this. I'm sure he'll be back. He'll be back in the Premier League. He's a good manager, and deserves a club that's going to be, you know, giving him backing in the transfer market, trusting the process. And yeah, Wolves just didn't do that. They didn't give him the backing. So the managers that are odds on to take over, I'm hearing Vitor Pereira of Al Shabab in the Saudi Pro League is going to be sort of their key target. They're willing to pay his release clause at Al Shabab. So I would not be surprised if he comes in. Another Portuguese manager as well, so he'll fit in with many of the players that are in there. Hopefully get a tune out of them maybe. But I'm also hearing Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, which I think would be a really intriguing appointment, you know. I feel like he's very underrated at Man United. He got him to a good position, got him playing some of the best football they have in years, to be honest, you know. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he gets appointed there, but I doubt he will. As I said, Vitor Pereira looks like he's nailed on. But a few managers, Graham Potter as well, was sort of linked with it. But yeah, for me, it looks like Vitor Pereira is going to take over, and he's had stints at, you know, Fenerbahce, Corinthians, FC Porto, so he's got good experience. Would like to see how he gets on, but yeah, I feel like it's only going to end one way this season. And I think that Wolves may get relegated. You know, it's looking really, really bleak for them. They've got the players to get out of it, no doubt about it. They've got the players to get out of this situation, but yeah, it's not looking good this season. So what do you guys think? Do you think Gary O'Neill should have been sacked, or should he have stayed on? Let us know in the comments down below. I'm definitely in favour of Gary O'Neill should have been kept, because I don't think it's his fault. I think it's the players. But as I said, get in the comments down below. Don't forget to hit a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you in the next one.